Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to our first session of the year. Today, we're going to have a session that's more in-house. So all of our presentations will be made by members. And well, we're going to start with talking about our activity plan for next month. Then we're going to have game jam presentations. Then we're going to talk about our participation on the Game Dev World Championship. Then we're going to have a presentation about a game we did in collaboration with CCB and Fábrica das Artes, do outro lado da toca. Then we'll have a very awaited pitch presentation by our member Carlos Marques. And then we're going to be discussing our recruitment for this year. Thank you all for being there. This is our second session being broadcasted through Twitch. And sit tight. Paul, are you ready?
Yeah, let me just set up the stream. Can you guys see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like Daniela said, I'm here to talk now about the activity plan that we have for February. This month it was a bit slow because, well, it's the beginning of the year and we had a jam at the month that not many people were interested in, and we opted to not select many others because we also have GameDev happening at the end of the month. But February we'll be back to in this case 3 jams. We try to pick, as always, stuff that's a bit different, diverse, so that the most people get to have close to what they want to participate in the most. So first off is the Dying MMO Jam. It's a jam with a thing that's a bit unusual. So the theme here is that you want to create an experience that's similar to what happens in an MMO that's about to be shut off. So this might be a bit close to home to people that have played one MMO that it's no longer available. I personally haven't. The closest I did to that was Club Penguin, but I mean, I didn't participate in the shutdown, so I didn't go through that experience. But in this case, of course, during this period, which is about 2 weeks, you won't be doing an MMO. So this experience is supposed to be single player. However, you are free to do any genre that you wish. You can do a visual novel about a story between 2 players. You can do an experience where a player is walking around and everyone is arriving to see the server shut down and enjoy their last minutes in the game. In that case, you are free to do whatever you want as long as, well, it fits in the Dying MMO theme. The second jam, which will run from February 19th to March 1st, is the Inspire Jam. In the Inspire Jam, they ask you to share something that inspires you. In this case, it doesn't need to be a game. Of course, we incentivize you to make a game because we are, well, GameDev Técnico. But you, in the case for artists or writers, you can just do a drawing, a piece of art, a piece of literature, anything that brings out what inspires you and what makes you feel good or feel uplifted in your life. And this one is also a ranked jam, so there will be an evaluation by the members, the people that participate, and all the submissions will be ranked in the end. Last but not least, we'll also have the Metroidvania Month 15, which will run from February 15th to March 15th, so a month long. We've participated in previous editions, so in this game jam, the main restriction is that the game that you create must be a Metroidvania. So these big action games with lots of backtracking, well, similar to Metroid and Castlevania. So the theme then here is not just announced, it will be voted on the Discord. So if you want to participate, you can go to the jam page and enter their Discord and participate in the voting. But in the end, this theme is also optional, so you don't actually need to follow it. For those that are joining us for the first time, all these 3 gems will be posted in a channel where you can indicate if you're intending to participate or not. It will be available in Looking for Group in the near future. But these are the gems that are going to be featured. Lastly, I'd like just to remind once again that this month we'll still have the Global Game Jam. It will be happening from the 28th to the 30th. We already talked a lot about the Global Game Jam, so I don't really want to repeat that. But we just want to inform that we'll be creating the channel for the jam soon, in the beginning of this week. And we also start dividing the teams and attributing the teams to each jam site. We are going to participate in Technical Bellas Arts site that's being organized by Lab Jogos. But we'll also be participating in 3 other international sites. One of them we are considering being the Netherlands site that we participated in last year. And for now, with the participants that we are aiming to have 4 teams with 4 to 5 members. And again, one will be in the Lab Jogos site, and the others will go to international sites, because we really want to provide different experiences. So so Global Game Jam isn't the same thing every year if you decide to participate in multiple years in a row. And well, if you go to jams out there, we'll also be spreading the name of GameDev Técnico, hopefully in a good way. So that's why we are choosing to participate in multiple jam sites in Portugal and out in the world. Of course, after the team creation, if you have any preference, if you want to change themes, you can talk to us. But all info regarding that will be posted later, so don't worry. If you miss some details, we'll all explain that at a later time. Meanwhile, if you are interested in participating, you go to the Looking for Group channel, and this is the post that you have to react to indicate that that you're interested, that you want to participate. And so in that way we can count you when creating the teams. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Paul. I wanted to add that if you're out there, and even if you don't want to join us as GameDev Técnico, you can join a team and participate on the Global Game Jam on the site of Técnico. So it's a very good experience for a first jam, because you have 2 days of work, and if it doesn't go well, you just wasted 2 days, which is not so bad. Well, now moving on with the game jam presentations. Let's start with the 1 minute jam. Are you guys there?
Yep.
I'm here.
Okay, then the stage is yours.
Can you guys share the screen? Okay.
Okay, I was just getting the presentation. Okay, so we participated in the 1 minute jam. The whole objective of the jam was to make a game that was a maximum of 1 minute of gameplay total. So when we were trying to think of an idea to be able to make a game like this, we came up with the idea of making a game about that irrational fear that I think all of us have, that when we turn off the lights in our room, we have to run into the bed or something to run away from demons or monsters or something like that. So that was the main idea that we came up for the game, just to, because we had to make a game that was only 1 minute, so we had to come up with an idea that could be doable. At some point, we thought about making a game about that 1 minute in which we realized that our mom is coming home and we had to defrost a chicken real quick because we forgot about it. But when it came to gameplay, we didn't know how we would do it, so we dropped the idea. By the way, I will give props of that idea to Julia, also from GameDev, Julia Piet. She was the one that gave us that idea for a little bit.
So for gameplay, we realized that we couldn't really make a very complex game mechanic because the player needed to learn it and be engaged enough to want to play it within a single minute. We could have made a written tutorial and not count that into the 1 minute, but that feels very artificial. And it feels like it kind of goes around the point of the jam. So we wanted to make something fast-paced that could hold your attention, but was simple enough that someone could understand without being given explicit instruction and without having to learn it. So we decided to follow some basic game tropes, and we followed inspiration from auto-scroller, side-scroller side games. The one we took the most from was the dinosaur game from Chrome, because it is simple enough that people know how to play it without being taught how to play it. You don't really need to explain it, and people like the gameplay idea. It doesn't have to be engaging for too long. You don't do it too much. It's just a minute of gameplay. So we thought it would be a good main mechanic for the game. In between the levels, to pace out the gameplay, we decided to add some kind of overworld, which is the image you see on the top right, which would allow us to, well, pace the gameplay a bit so that it's not just high action all the time, give the player a moment to breathe, and it gives the player some extra agency in the game. They decide when the level starts. So realistically, the player could take more than 1 minute or less than 1 minute, depending on how long they spend between rooms. But we didn't stress it too much because we felt it was still within the spirit of the jam. And it allows the player to take a breather between levels without being too stressed, because we wanted the levels to go up in difficulty. And without some kind of element between the levels to pace it out, it would feel much too stressful, we think.
When we first were coming up with ideas for the game, at some point, just as art ideas, we thought about making something with a more Victorian style. But as the full idea for the game came up, it was decided on a more modern look. These are some of the character design concepts that Andrea did. In the end, she ended up using symmetry to make the sprites look more uniform, as you can see here. For the house plan, the so-called overworld, I did something simplistic, but that looked nice enough. And for each light that turns off as you go and play the game, I basically just did that's not an overlay. An overlay over the entire drawing that just was empty in the parts where the light hits. Since we needed obstacles for the minigame, and then I looked around the map that I had done and tried to grab objects that were already present there so that it wouldn't feel out of place. Lastly, for the game over and the winning screens, we decided to do to make something obviously to do with the story, where if you don't get it done in a minute or if you lose, the character gets caught by the demon, but as the whole idea was that it is an irrational fear in the same at the same time as you get this screen, afterwards you get this one, and you realize that it was just the character's cat shadow, and just that irrational fear making the main character scared when it didn't need to be. And lastly, if you win, you just go to bed and enjoy a nice night's sleep with your cat. And that's it.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask, who was participating in this game jam?
It was me, Pedro Godinho, Samuel Barata, and Andrea Sanchez.
And how long did it last for?
It was 2 weeks.
Okay.
2 weeks? Yes, I think so.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. If no one else has any questions, we can move on to the Metroid.
I just
This
wanted to
was-
say that
oh.
the plot twist of the cat being the monster was pretty cool, playing the game and knowing that.
Thank you.
So Metroid's team, is this our second or third time participating on a Metroid jam? Second? Okay.
It's the first, but we already made a Metroidvania for Time Jam.
Oh, okay. Okay, so go ahead.
Okay. So, welcome to Steve. That's the name of the game that we came up with, or more, Carlos came up with. And immediately as we saw the title, we thought that, yes, this game needs to be called Steve. And we did the game for Metroidvania month 14, which is the 14th edition of this Metroidvania, and just like much like the game jam that was presented on this meeting, it had an optional theme which we ended up not going to because it was monochromatic, and we as a team thought that it restricted us from the creativity that we have had and the ideas that we had already came up with. And so we decided to not take it. And we ended up doing this game, which we inspired ourselves in most of other Metroidvanias we came across with, and we experienced throughout like 2 weeks of playing Metroidvanias that we could inspire ourselves, and always kept a fine line that we tried to keep it new, but not too overboard.
So I ended up coming up with the general idea, which was a Metroidvania set inside a monster, because that's an idea that had been sitting in my head for a while. I always liked levels in games where it was inside a living thing and you could see its guts. It was kind of weird and disgusting. And so we just took that general concept and tried to create a moveset based on Metroidvanias we liked, whether they were Metroid or Hollow Knight. And we eventually built out the world and the moveset. Dio, could you please? So I'm gonna talk a bit about the tech behind the game. So this was the second Metroidvania I worked on. So a lot of things I already brought from the first. So just to explain how the map is set up, you see those colliders in green? That's a room essentially. And basically how that works is the camera, which I use in machine, knows to stay inside the boundaries of that room unless you move to another. So it creates that Metroid effect of going to a different room. For the minimap, for the minimap, what I ended up doing was, so we decided that each room would be like made of blocks of, I don't remember the unit size, but say 10 by 10. So you can see that the room that is like 1 square over there, it's 10 by 10, but the room that is 2 by 2 squares is 20 by 20. So what we ended up doing is we have 2 grids. We have a main grid, which is where we paint the level geometry, which is below what you're seeing right now. And we have a second grid, which is 10 by 10 instead of 1 by 1, which is for the minimap, and we paint over it. And so what happens is we have a tile map, which is basically every color there. And when the player enters the tile map, it starts rendering on the minimap, which is basically a camera that only renders that layer and sits atop the corner during gameplay. And you can see it also on the pause menu, the entire map that you've unlocked. So I was pretty pleased with myself for finally figuring out a mini map, because I was said I couldn't do it on the first Metroidvania I did.
It's cool. I was just trying to turn on the sound. So the core mechanics of the game are these. Basically, use A and D to move, spacebar to jump. You can also wall jump if you time it right. The right mouse button is for kicking, which basically knocks foes away when they're too close to you. And the left mouse button shoots. And also we have 3 upgrades that you can get. When you kill an enemy, you have the chance that they drop one of these. Is a power upgrade, which basically makes your shots make more damage, a jump upgrade, and a speed upgrade that makes you go faster.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I was in charge of the backgrounds, tiles, and sprites such as Diogo has previously said, the damage, the dash upgrade, health upgrade, and so on. Because this was inside of a monster, we wanted to make the craziest things, you know, change the colors as much as possible, and make very strange shapes, make things that basically that wouldn't make sense because this was an alien monster. So we wanted to play with that idea. These free backgrounds were a few, but I also made the stomach, mouth, and so on. Also, I've made many more tiles, but these are the ones that I presented, although they were very challenging to make. And these are a few sprites that I've made.
When designing Steve, the first thing that came into my mind when we were discussing ideas was this character has to have one eye. I don't know why that idea popped into my head when I was thinking about the design, but it was the first thing that came, and we all agreed. Then the design I've come up with was made in order that when I was going to animate, because every sprite, character sprite, enemy sprite, was animated in TV Paint, pretty much traditional 2D animation. And I wanted to make a design where I just had to animate the legs, but I knew the character would need at least something that would function as an arm. So the idea that we came with was a tentacle that would function as an arm and would just come out when it was necessary, in order to make the animation process go faster and be functional. On the left are some of the first concepts. On the right, I mixed some of the studies with the final sprites. The one on the right is the wall hug, and the other one is the stance with the weapon. These are some of the animations. We have the punch, and the other one is an enemy. it was the range enemy. The creature would open his mouth and just shoot the. I believe it was kind of like fireballs, some projectiles. Um, Pretty much the enemies I've made for this game were a compilation of the some sketches I do that turn out really weird, and then I just challenge myself to animate them and make them work.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you a bit of the game itself and how it plays.
Watch out for the sound, it might be really loud when you first
Yeah.
open the game.
Okay.
Maybe go to the sound and lower it a bit. Or do that.
How is it for you guys? Is it okay?
We are not hearing, so I think it's fine.
Oh,
You might have to share the game only instead of the screen.
so okay, so just a second.
I have a question for you while you set it up, all that, and you play the game. You can answer too. About the design of the game, I think the idea of the inside of a monster is pretty cool. Did you have to make some changes to the gameplay or to the maps to cope with this idea, or did it fit right in with what you're implementing?
I mean, that was the first idea of all. So everything just kind of, when we were deciding, was already with the notion that it has to fit into the concept. So we didn't need to retrofit anything because that was the first idea. Everything else was built around that idea.
Okay.
I think that the only thing that we could say, like we had to more think about it, at least on my behalf, it was when I was thinking about the map and the rooms that I have. I always try to, because the body is normally always connected, and I've never felt so close to medical students as before, trying to study anatomy. But because as body is always connected throughout everything, I had and Carlos had, when we were brainstorming through the goddamn map, that we had to connect everything in some kind of way that it would make sense and it wouldn't just be, oh my god, you're in the eyeballs. Oh, now you're in the stomach. Oh god, how did you get here? Oh well. So yeah, and it was more of that challenge by itself.
Diogis, there's probably an option to share sound right on your share screen options over there in Zoom.
I think it's don't worry about it, guys. Just play the game.
Just play the game. Otherwise we'll be stuck here forever.
Which part of the monster are we in at the moment?
This is the esophagus.
Oh, okay.
So below would be the stomach, which I don't know if he's going to access because I'm pretty sure you already missed an upgrade. But oh well.
These power-ups that you have changed the gameplay, or just incrementing the power of
Steve? You get a temporary boost to your abilities. So you see right there, there's a timer counting down because for the duration of that timer, your shots do more damage. So in theory, you could stack the various buffs.
Yes.
And for some reason, only one timer is working, but I'm sure the effect is still. Oh, right there, there's an S. That's a safe room. That was another fun thing of this jam, is finally implementing a save system. So basically I had, for every little thing in the game, save what the player had already done. So I could reload the save. So that's the thing about this game, you don't have to beat it all in one go. And also use that to, the game has no checkpoints really, it just reloads your save.
I'm just trying to get the save room right now so I can show you that.
The stomach is below, just drop down.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, there's a stomach.
Oh.
And this is one of our combat rooms. So we couldn't do a lot of feedback for enemies getting hit, but we ended up with this really cool dissolve effect for. Okay, you died.
I
You didn't
died.
save your game.
I was really low HP. Yeah, let me try to find the save room this time. I missed it somehow.
Yeah, it was. Maybe there's an upgrade when you go down
Oh, okay.
and to the left. So follow, yeah, that left path over there. No, you have to climb those platforms and then I think that. Yes, so left over here.
Guys, we're a bit out of schedule, so
Yeah, let's just show an upgrade room.
okay.
So this upgrades your damage permanently. It's not a buff, and that upgrades your health. You get an extra bar. That's what the square signifies, kind of like Metroid. But yeah, I think we're done.
Okay, thank you. And now for our final jam presentation, the Winter Jam. Are you guys here? Are you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. How can I show my, okay. Here. Can everyone see?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna talk about our game that we've developed through this jam that it's called Jotunheim. This is our team. It consists with André Antunes, Maria Gomes, me, Mariana Santos, and Tiago Martins, that unfortunately cannot be here, but will speak on his behalf. Also, a fun thing to say is that me and Maria were newbies.
Oh, sorry, Mariana. Can you just unshare and share again? The stream apparently is not catching it.
Yeah. How is it now?
No, stop sharing and then share again, I think, because George is not catching it on the stream.
What about now?
I think it's still the same because you didn't stop sharing. Like click again on the share screen, I think, to stop share. There's a button, a red button on the top, and then do the process all again. Yeah, exactly that.
Like this?
Let's see if George can. Yeah, I think it's fine now.
Okay. Anything I can show? This is the main menu of our game that we'll be playing shortly after. This is the team, and yeah, as I was saying, me and Maria were newbies, and Tiago is a member, and Andre is more of a senior member. So there's a lot of levels of experience here, and it was really fun to work with people of different levels, so us that are more newbies, we can learn. For the jam, this was the Winter VN jam, and that happened from December 1st to December 31st. So it was a whole month. We had to develop this game, and it was story-based. Maria.
Yeah, like Mariana said, we had to do a very story-based game. And of course, our mind jumped right to visual novels. We thought it was the best way to represent a story. We had a month, but it was a short month for us because we only started working from 15 December, if I'm not mistaken. We had a lot of stuff to do, so we only had half a month to work on the game. To work on a visual novel, we decided to choose a visual novel engine known as Rampai. That's the logo on the left. And Andre did almost all the work studying Rampai. It's a very easy engine to use. He studied it a little bit. I was part of the coding team. He explained it to me how we could do the story and how could we use Rampai to do a visual novel. It's very easy. We basically almost did nothing besides the story and some of the some things to make the screen look better, the music, defining when the characters would appear, but that's basically the gist of it.
Okay. Okay, now talking about art, me and Tiago were responsible for the art part, and Maria and Andre for the programming part. In the beginning, me and Tiago were pretty much discussing ideas, how we wanted the characters to look. On the bottom right, there's my concept art for the main character, Astrid, that how I envisioned her. And then Tiago took the lead and he started building the characters. I forgot to mention that the game is inspired by the Norse mythology, by the way, if we couldn't say by the vibes. So we had to also put a lot of research and in games that inspired us, even images. On the upper right, there is an image of these mountains, the storm. So we wanted to keep that winter vibes. The winter is coming and we're in a new place, discovering a new world. This is our final art. So as I was saying, that Tiago took the lead, he made the characters and they're amazing. And I made the scenarios, the environment, which was a challenge for me since I'm more used to make characters as well. And I wasn't expecting it to be so challenging creating something from scratch, but I think I did a good job and everyone here did a good job.
So, like we said, it was a very story-based game, and the original idea for the story was given by Andre. We eventually all worked in the narrative. We decided what we wanted for the narrative to go from, to where we wanted to end, and we became really excited of the narrative. It consists mainly on our main character, a girl named Astrid, who's forced to go on a trip with maybe, I think, 8 warriors that don't trust her. She's just a child. She's a young girl, and she's tasked with leading this team to find a cure to cure the village back home. The narrative is really intricate. We began in this simple voyage and we became really excited. We made lots of adventures for these new worlds the characters are entering, Jotunheim. And we made a lot of challenges for them. And one thing we did was we thought maybe we could give some interactivity to the players. So we have a lot of choices, and the focus of the game is the relationship between the characters. So our girl Astrid has options to choose who she wants to talk, how she wants to talk to them, and that affects their future relationship. And sometimes people, if they don't like her, might not want to follow our advice or orders. If they like her, they might be more willing. And we planned a big picture story for this. One thing that happened is, like I said, we got really excited, so we didn't have time to finish the story. So our game ends in the first chapter with a big plot twist. Well, not a big plot twist, but a big surprise.
More like a cliffhanger.
Yes. True, yes.
Do you want me to
Yeah.
go next? Okay. All right. So I can start if you want. Speaking of our experience, as I was saying previously, that we're 2 newbies and 2 members. So this was a huge relief for us because they helped us a lot getting into the jam world. And the fact that this jam was a month-long jam and it wasn't ranked and there was not a lot of pressure, in my experience, that helped me a little because it could get me started slowly and calmly on how to make a game, which I had no experience previously. And overall, getting to know the team, how Git worked, how we could put our art there to help our fellow programmers, and that's it. Maria?
Yeah. My experience was fantastic. I loved it. I loved working in this game. Like I said, Rampai was really easy to use, and this gem wasn't ranked, so it was a very chill experience. The main challenge maybe I had was how do I say it? Well, shifting the story to match Andre, because we were both writing the narrative and we had a few different writing styles. So we had to match that. That may be the most challenging thing we did, or I did at least. But besides that, it was very easy to use Rampai. I had a very fun experience. I loved the writing. I loved making the story for these characters, and I even got a little bit ahead of myself. And one of the arcs I did ended up having like 800 lines because I was really having fun making the relationship between the characters.
Andre?
Yeah, complementing a bit from a point of view of somebody with a little more experience, I think in the overall experience it was pretty good. I was appalled a bit because we had 2 newbies. 50% of our team never participated in gems, so we tried to scope a bit the game down, as they said, try just make a chapter instead of trying to make the whole story. And I think it went pretty well overall. They fitted right in. They were excited to work, and that was pretty cool, and open to suggestions and to new learning experiences, and that facilitated the process, the older process. I think it was, as Maria was saying, the main challenge was for me to write, because normally when you write, you put your image of a story on a game, and to have 2 people or 3 to making that work might be challenging, because we have different ideas and different ways of expressing ourselves, of telling a story, and we had to comb everything together. But I think it went pretty well. We had a lot of meetings discussing the story and the next points of the story, the next challenges that the adventurers would face, and that was pretty cool. I think the overall experience was pretty fine. The fact that it was 1 month helped a lot for me for they to learn how to work in RunPy, how to make the art, and we could iterate a lot the arts and the characters and the environments. And overall, it was quite a good experience. And now we are hoping to continue. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
But in another note, I still want to speak on Tiago's behalf, saying how was his experience since he was also part of the team. So I think it's important. I'm gonna read what he said. In my experience, this jam was really positive. I had a lot of fun. Besides being in holiday season, I think it went really well for a first experience as a monthly jam. The team was really balanced and everyone got along really well. The final result was great, and with time it can get better. So yeah, we want to continue the game because, as we were saying, we only were able to develop a chapter, and there's still a lot of storytelling that we would like excuse me, to tell. So
yeah,
we're now looking for voice actors and music composers to make everything come together even nicely.
yeah, so our decision was actually to continue working on the game because we all enjoyed it so much. And we have more time now, so we decided to change it a little bit. We still don't have an idea what we really want, but we're taking a bit of inspiration from Banner Saga and Ash of Gods, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and we're trying to rework a bit of the game so it's a bit more interactive, it's a bit more fun. The art is a little bit more realistic, and we plan to have a few more chapters written and our story to be developed because we love it so much.
I think we can give just a little bit of a teaser. I don't know who's sharing, Mariana, but if you can just show the new art that Tiago made, I think would be a good way to end and to show what we are thinking of working from now on.
Mm-hmm. And we also wanted to share a little of the game so you guys can have an idea. Okay. So this is the before on the right and the after on the left. So you can see since we have time, we can develop it better, we can give it more detail, and it shows here. And we're really proud of his work.
Yeah.
And this can tease you a little, and a lot
more to come.
and a little, yes.
More
and
to come.
What's coming, yes. Now Maria is gonna share the screen, and we're gonna play a little bit of the game. We have time.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have time because Daniela was saying earlier that we are a bit short on time.
Yeah, we're really short on time now. So here's what we're going to do. You're gonna share the links on Zoom and on Twitch so everyone can play your games. This goes for the previous teams as well. I'm really looking forward to see to be able to join this maybe. It looks promising and the story looks great, really. So thank you very much for your presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're moving on to the, let me see if I get this name right, to the CPU Takeover team to talk about the GameDev World Championship and how they participated and how it was. So guys, are you ready?
Yep.
Carlos, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're both named Carlos, so don't confuse yourselves. Eu não estou a falar em inglês, nós já decidimos que íamos apresentar em português. Eu estou aqui a exportar os slides.
Sure.
Porque tens o slide final com o jogo.
Tranquilo. Conseguem ver?
Uhum.
Ok.
Então, só eu começo. Basicamente, então, isto é o CPU Takeover. Isto foi um jogo que fizemos para aí em abril ou assim, para a Bullet Hell Jam, e agora melhoramos para entrar nos GameDev World Championship. Podes passar à frente, se faz favor. Portanto, isto basicamente aconteceu. Nós nem sequer tínhamos ouvido falar deste concurso, sequer. Simplesmente alguém mandou um mail para uma das nossas artistas, que é a Joana, que como não damos muita arte, não está aqui na apresentação, mas mandaram um mail e dizeram, ei, o teu jogo tem potencial, se calhar deviam participar nisto, então, por que não? Também já queremos voltar e polir um bocado o jogo, isto dava-nos uma oportunidade perfeita. Podes mudar, se faz favor. Mas isto é o jogo que fizemos na Game Jam, porque o tema da Jam era 10 segundos. Portanto, a ideia é que temos um boss aí no centro e a cada 10 segundos ele muda o padrão de balas que dispara. Até um ponto ele pode chegar a ter vários padrões de balas ao mesmo tempo e também dá spawn de inimigos a cada 10 segundos, que também vão sendo mais à medida que passa o tempo. E depois os inimigos largam power-ups, que fazem o jogo mais fácil. E, portanto, é uma questão de estar a tentar matar o boss, gerir o número de inimigos no ecrã e apanhar os power-ups. Tens uma mecânica que é, se o player raspar perto de balas, sem levar um hit, o tempo congela momentaneamente. Ou seja, adia o spawn de inimigos e isso tudo. Portanto, podes passar. E havia bons problemas. Usar o mouse aiming estava bugado, simplesmente não sentia bem. Por acaso, com o comando, o jogo estava bom, mas havia problemas com o rato, que felizmente foi o Steve que nos salvou, porque eu fiz aquele bem positivo, não sei como, foi tipo assim um tutorial diferente, e depois foi só aproveitar esse código. Mas não tínhamos um dead screen ou assim, tipo, morrias e dava um kick para o title screen. Aliás, só tinhas um hit, agora tens vários. Quando disparavas contra um power-up, ele desaparecia. Tipo, havia uma falta de polish em geral, tipo, havia bugs e coisas assim meio feias. Não havia assim muito feedback quando levavas ou davas dano, ou quando fazias um dash, portanto é um bocadinho difícil saber às vezes o que é que estava a acontecer, e a UI estava bastante incompleta. Aliás, como vi no GIF anterior, a score nem estava a dar. A primeira coisa que eu mudei foi o mouse aiming, foi tipo copiar o código do Steve. A única diferença realmente é que antes não estava a usar o mouse.current position read value, estava só a fazer o camera roll to screen point, e não sei porquê exatamente. Mas também temos agora sensitividade diferente tanto em comandos como no rato. Porque antes tínhamos no comando, porque aquilo, um joystick é um bocadinho mais sensível, portanto não queríamos, tipo, quando o player mexe um bocadinho o stick, imediatamente aquilo roda bastante. Portanto temos assim uma threshold que é tipo, se o teu movimento for abaixo deste valor, não moves. Por acaso no rato a threshold é 0, que é para ser ultra preciso, mas faz sentido num stick.
Bem, relativamente ao title screen, nós tínhamos assim uma coisa um bocado chata, que era simplesmente os botões pareciam que não davam para clicar. Nós depois agora, como tivemos algum tempo para rever o jogo para submeter, tínhamos alguns problemas. Por exemplo, aqui era porque a imagem estava sobreposta e simplesmente não conseguimos clicar nos botões por causa disso, e na altura não reparámos porque já estávamos um bocado a correr no último dia da submissão para a GEM e pronto, e foi assim mesmo. Como o Carlos estava a dizer, implementámos mais outros botões, por exemplo, de ter um ecrã a mostrar como é que se joga, porque há certos controles como o dash que não são assim tão intuitivos quanto isso. Para além disso, adicionámos um ecrã intermédio de morte, porque nós antes só tínhamos, era basicamente hit kill, o player assim que levava com o hit morria, o que pronto, é um bocado overkill num jogo como este, que foi o que pusemos aqui. E aqui temos a mostrar a nova versão do jogo. No geral, nós melhorámos o feedback visual para o jogador, nomeadamente demos um rework à UI. Nós agora temos, por exemplo, ali o tempo de congelamento do spawn de players, o que ajuda de players de inimigos, o que ajuda o player a perceber quando é que vão spawnar novos inimigos. Temos ali as vidas que o player ainda tem restantes e um indicador de dash, que está tanto na UI ali em letras grandes, como também na própria sprite do player, ali com aquele marcador vermelho. Para além disso, adicionámos também uma cue visual para o dash, em que o jogador fica invulnerável a dano enquanto está neste state, o que ajuda, por exemplo, quando o player está encurralado entre várias balas, a conseguir sair dali sem perder uma vida. Foi basicamente isto. Também aproveitámos a oportunidade só para dar um pequenino rework à página do itch.io, que podem ver por este link. Calculo que já não haja grande tempo para mostrarmos um bocadinho de jogo, mas depois podem ir lá ver e jogar um bocadinho, que é bastante fun.
Só para dizer outra vez obrigado a Patrícia, que fez a maioria fez esses backgrounds e essa arte toda. Foi mais para coisas de marketing, não tanto no jogo, foi por isso que não incluímos na apresentação, mas as nossas artistas também colaboraram agora para a submissão, e também a Joana ajudou um bocadinho com aquele sprite da luz para o dash e coisas assim menores. Mas isto foi tipo trabalho, tipo 2 ou 3 tardes. O jogo ficou tipo night and day com um bocadinho de trabalho. Que acho que é interessante. Mas pronto. Acho que está tudo.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. We're very proud to have a submission as good as yours, representing us as GameDev Técnico. And it's really nice to see how indeed, if you take 1 or 2 afternoons after submitting your game to a game jam, you can just turn it around completely and make it a very polished and very good looking game. So let's move on to our next presentation. Do outro lado da toca, GDT's game. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Oui, madame.
Oui.
Can you share your screen, Andre?
Me? Okay. Let me just
do the honors.
Okay.
Remember to share with sound, since we have the video, the trailer on the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's gonna work though. But...
Here we go. Are you listening?
Yeah, I think so.
Are you listening?
Yeah.
Basically, we were a team composed of 6 people on the total, 4 in the beginning, me, Diogo, Pedro Jorge, and Sofia, who can't be here today, and then we were joined later with Renata and Ariana.
And yeah, I'm gonna just talk briefly because we don't have a lot of time about how it all started. And it started by an invitation from CCB regarding the program that they were going to prepare for the end of 2020, start of 2021. It was called Outro Lado da Toca. It was about the book of Lewis Carroll, on Alice in the Wonderland. And we received an invitation. Actually, it was technical on behalf of Professor Rui Prada from Laboratório de Jogos. And he talked to us to see if we have the capability to produce a game for CCB. And yeah, indeed, we were able to do it. And it all started back in July 2020. And at the time, we were still in the early stages, let's say, of COVID. But back then, we kind of believed that by the end of 2020, everybody would be back to work. Everybody would be in public places. What a funny time it was. Though it didn't happen. So we started to plan for the possibility of having a physical exhibition as well as a virtual exhibition. And the virtual one would be the game. It would be a book, an audio book, some music, some digital plays, and other stuff. And we as GameDev Técnico would collaborate with a small group inside of CCB called Fábrica das Artes, which is the young creators program for younger people, for kids and toddlers. And yeah, this was more or less how it all started. And we had a couple of challenges in the process that we're going to talk throughout this presentation. We tried to divide it regarding each one of the areas of the development process. So production-wise, artistic-wise, regarding the marketing, the deployment, and yeah, let's start with that. I think now it's André's time, right?
Yeah, so basically, as Diogo said, this project was made of several components, and on the moment we joined the team, some of them had already started making basically development, and already had the plays already had some narrative and some concepts. Even the art for the exhibition already had some concepts, and we entered a bit later on the process. And so this idea is the artistic residency is something that we probably as engineers or scientific in the scientific field haven't heard of it, but basically is an idea to organize the project that was composed of around 20 to 30 people, and they promoted this event to basically get to know each other, share some ideas, structure a bit the workflow of all the components of the project, and overall for everybody to get acquainted with each other. And honestly, it was a really cool experience because we participated during 2 days. This artistic residency lasted for 2 weeks, I think.
Yep.
And during it, we had some fun games, like in warm up in the morning. Then we had time to meet with Beatriz, which was our lead to the artist for the game, and discuss a bit with her and two other artists the art direction for the exhibition and how we could incorporate in our game. And we managed to watch the plays basically played for us by the actors, just for us, and it was quite fun to discuss with them the characters and the narrative, and then again how they could incorporate in our game. Because it is important to mention that on this phase we hadn't talked about the game between ourselves. Game design was in a zero, was in a blank slate. So during these days between our meetings, we started to brainstorm and have the first ideas, the first mock-ups for the concept of our game that would later on be this game that we're sharing here today.
Okay, sorry if I don't sound so good, but I'll try. So, as with all game designs, we started with a game design document. It was a really big game design document, at least for me. It had more than 40 pages and more than one version. The first version had an emphasis on the conceptual and mechanical dimension of the game. The second one had some suggestions from Nuno Afonso and feedback from Fábrica das Artes. And the last one already had some feedback from the initial prototypes from the levels we designed. So regarding the game design itself, for those who don't know the game is a single-player adventure platform game where the player that's playing as Alice has to explore and save the community of Wonderland from the Queen by traversing side-scrolling stages and with a secondary objective of collecting some eggs that can be painted in the museum. This game was part of the Festa de Aniversário, an anniversary birthday. No, okay, I'm not even going to try it. Exhibition produced by CCB and Fábrica das Artes, alongside with an art installation that could be visited, some plays and other events regarding the world of Alice. The environment and narrative of the game revolve around the universe present in this installation, and the player can experience all these different rooms and characters and bits of the story that are depicted by the actors in our game. but this game can be seen as an extension of the exhibition. By this I mean you wouldn't be needed to go to the exhibition to understand the game, and either the other way around. So you could go to one and understand the other without having to experience them both. This interactive art installation that was made by Fábrica das Artes proposed a journey through multiple rooms that were mostly made part of our game world. The first one, that was the game lobby, represented the exhibition entrance with inclusion of all sorts of elements like drawers, doors, keys, and other small notices. And the three main rooms in the exhibition were also the three main chapters of our game that were made part of our game within a 2-month interval. And these chapters were the garden, the tea table, and the upside down world, or as we called it, the Queen's Palace. Each of these three chapters was prototyped individually before making it part of our game. The garden, in the garden, Elise had to jump, as you can see in the picture, on flowers, on clouds, on mushrooms, and could change her size. On the tea table, Elise had the power to control moving objects with time bubbles. And finally, in the Queen's Palace, Elise had to avoid the Queen's guards and face her while shifting gravity. And I think you can move on.
Yeah, just to complement one thing, for example, one challenge that we had in the game design was to implement every little detail that we got from the residency. We tried to put a little bit of it on the game. And for example, the narrative where we had to look at the plays were disconnected. They didn't have a single narrative line between them. So we had, for example, 3 plays with 3 different Alices. And we try to take a bit of each other to put in our game, in our narrative, and in the levels, as George explained.
Oh, so it is okay. Talking about a bit about artistic direction and the challenges that we had. In the beginning, we had only Sofia as an art member, especially because we weren't so sure about the job demands and what was the strategy of CCB and Fábrica das Artes for this job. But after realizing more or less the needs of the project, we decided that we needed to expand our artistic support, and Ariana and me entered the team. So in this sense, it was defined by Fábrica das Artes that Beatriz Bagulho would be our contact in art-related issues, and also she would make art, animation, and illustration direction for this game. The UI was to be developed by GDT members, and special nods to Sofia, that was amazing developing the assets for this. In the meantime, Beatriz was participating in the installments of all the immersive installation, Do Outro Lado da Toca, that Jorge already spoke about. And this was a bit overwhelming for the work demands for the game. So we had the urge to call more animation assistants to animate, and Beatriz and GDT made a pitch in University of West England to help in the character animation that were the card enemies for the 3rd chapter. Regarding animation, I also want to have something very interesting to denote. Well, Beatriz, she was an animation expert and has a traditional background, and there were a lot of tools and processes and techniques that were completely new to us. I don't know if you are familiar with this, but game animation and traditional animation, they are totally different things. Not totally, but they are different. They diverge. We normally in game animation, we need less frames, and also we use less time doing this. And in the beginning, we had to understand, well, for instance, we never used TV Paint, and this was the main tool that the animation team had pro efficiency. In the middle ground, we managed to use Photoshop for all the animations. And also in the beginning, we also had to understand more or less how would we do this. There was a learning curve, of course. GDT team, despite not having as much as creative liberty as an indie developers, still managed to create many contents that were related to the core of this project. And a bit of conclusion for this, we learned a lot of things regarding the delivery of the project, and with special reference that working in keyframe animation was something that was really, really way beyond what we've done and the normal jams that we do in GDT. So we learned really a lot with Beatriz, and that has a really wonderful work. You should check also her work. And but I also have to say it was painful. It had blood and tears, and well, but no pain, no gain. Anyways, one of the things that was really nice was the fact that we needed to understand and try to find also the best solution to deliver. And I think we did an amazing job. Not being humble, but yeah, okay. And then.
Okay, talking a bit about the UI experience and the UX experience for mobile. A lot of us didn't have experience deving for mobile, and certainly not at this scale, at this level of game development. And of course, for us in game jams, we normally don't worry too much about UI or UX, or if you have a main menu is luck in our games. But basically here we had to have a different POV for this project, because this was something to share on the Play Store, on the App Store. So we had to have an user experience well detailed, and UI had to be well taught. For example, the size of the letters that in mobile devices normally smaller, we had to identify where they should be put at when we are in the gameplay, because we have a small screen, and if the person needs to have the fingers in front of the screen, she can't see anything. So we had to think all about these details, about something that less is more in this game. So we had to take out a lot of buttons that normally on computer might appear, but in mobile they can't, because the user needs to view the game in itself. And of course, there are a lot of challenges, namely the screen size and adjustment, because in computer normally we make games for 1080p, 720p, but in mobile we have to think about all the different sizes of screen, the iPads, the phones, and we had to make sure that the UI adjusted well, the menus adjusted well to every little screen size. There were a lot of nuances. Fortunately, we had some help from Miniclip. I think you can talk a bit about that, because you were on the meeting.
I was going to talk about that in the production challenges, but
okay,
I can say a couple of words here about this. Yeah, as Andrea said, actually the first games that I started developing were for mobile a while back ago, but yeah, most of the team didn't have expertise in this, and Sophia was a little bit overwhelmed with all the UI she had to build for the game. So we decided to talk with Miniclip, one of our partners here at GDT. And they gave us, I don't remember how many minutes it was, but at least 10 hours of contributions from their side to support the design and development of UI, and mostly UX. The UX experience is something that it's not very easy to find resources online to games like ours, an adventure game with an hub in a mobile phone, and they were able to give us a lot of hints, some small tips and tricks that made the game a lot better in the end.
Yeah, basically this is just to show you a little menu that we implemented in our game. We presented several layouts for the buttons. As you see here, we divided the screen, the small screen for the jump ability and the right screen for the special abilities. And the player has the possibility of showing the buttons there, smaller buttons, just one on one side of the screen. And these little details we had to think about, and it is normally something that we don't think when we are making games for the computer, because normally we have a keyboard and a mouse, but on the phone everything must be on the screen, and that was really good challenges for you to implement, and it was quite the learning experience.
Also, let me just add one thing back there. We were not two things mainly. The first one is try to make assets that are reusable. As you can see, most of them are vector based, and we were able to reuse a lot of those regarding many designs, so we do not waste a lot of time, but also try to experiment with players, try to do playtesting as soon as possible, because we focus on accessibility from the start. We wanted the game to be played from 4 years old to almost 20 years old. It was more or less the target audience of the game, because we were the people that were going to visit the exhibition as well. And just consider the fact that small kids have different finger sizes, so it's hard for them to press some buttons on the screen, whereas an older person might be more easily able to grasp what are the controls in the screen. And these things only are visible when you put players interacting with the game. So try to do it from the start, and yeah, from the get-go, you're gonna give a better experience for the players.
So talking a bit about sounds and mainly music, which is normally another thing that we don't have much time to implement on game jams. But here we were fortunately to work with a famous musical group, Portuguese musical group called Cucamonga, which is quite famous, and they provided the music for the entire project. So for the audiobooks, for the plays, and luckily for our game too. We met with them several times during the development to explain a bit our needs, because I think you can understand that making music for a game it's quite different from making music for an audiobook or for a play, especially for an infinite runner, because you have to have a music that will be looped infinitely and must never take the focus of the game from the gameplay. So it should be a background music, but enhance the gameplay in itself. And it was a challenge explaining these needs to them. Fortunately, the member that talked with us already had some experience playing video games when he was younger. So it was quite fun talking with him about those experiences and the games in itself, and how we wanted the music to enhance our experience. And they were able to make several pieces for us too. And one of them was specific for our game, which was pretty cool, and for the narrative itself, not for the gameplay part. But basically there was some process of iteration. They sent some pieces to us, and we said, oh, this one fits well in the lobby, this one fits well on the garden level, but we want a bit of this and we want a bit of that, and going forward and backward, they send us the final musics that we use in the game, and the end project was quite good, honestly. It's quite different for us to here in GameDev that we have some people amateur in concept of music and in concept of sounds. To work with somebody that already has lots of experience on that, it's quite refreshing and quite the knowledgeable experience too.
You're muted.
You're muted, you.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe this part is not as good, so I must shut up. No, but these were the main bulk of challenges that we faced throughout the project. I myself, as a programmer and an engineer, moved out a little bit out of my comfort zone to try to work as the producer of the project. I still provided some guidance regarding programming. We are all to have multiple hats in these sort of projects, but I focus more on the production challenges. And I kind of have a huge list of things that I want to share with you all, but I am not going to be able to do it in this presentation. But feel free to reach me or any other team member to discuss these challenges or others later on. And I'm going to mention 5 of them that I think are very important. When we participate in jams and these smaller scope projects, we tend to balance the expectations of all the members, and more or less we can find some common ground and we can all be reasonable about it. And it's pretty easy to, in the time span of at most a month, to start from a huge expectation, start to scope down the game, to reduce the domain of things that we want to do, and come up with something that it's playable, it's fun, we all had a great time doing. But in this project, it was quite hard to do that, because we as game developers were interacting with Cucamonga for the music, with Beatriz, and the remainder of the artistic team from CCB, with the production of CCB itself, with all the other performers and artists in the program. So it was very hard to balance all the expectations. So we more or less started to shifting our focus of trying to integrate the game in the program in an holistic way, let's say. And we focus on picking up stuff from each one of the parties involved in the project. And I think by the end, we came up with something that from our side as game developers, we can be proud of. And it bounds very well with all the exhibition. And this is the first thing that I want to talk about. It's very hard to meet expectations of all the parties involved in this sort of projects, the large projects. And in the end, at least that's what we chose to. It was to feel comfortable with the final product on our hand. Also, since we were working with people that never worked with games, I remember in the residency that we attended, we had to do a presentation, like an improv 1 hour presentation about what's about doing games. And as game developers, it was fun to share with them because most of them actually knew what games were, but didn't know what was behind the scenes. So from the get-go, we started developing the game back in October, I think. So we, in October, started to establish interfaces with all the teams saying, okay, we need the script as soon as possible to try to see how we can fit the narrative of your play into the narrative of the game. We need to have some concept art as soon as possible from Beatriz and the other artists. And this was a troublesome process. It was very hard to manage. But in the end, I think we did a great job. And Renata, Sofia, and Ariana faced a lot of these troubles with the artistic side. But in the end, I think everybody got along quite well, and we were able to produce a lot of things. But as Renata said, no pain, no gain. I've already talked about the collaboration with Miniclip. It was very important to interact with professionals for 3 main reasons. The first one, of course, if we get the feedback, the game is going to get better in the end. But also the members that interact with these professionals start to learn and to be more aware of the practices that are going on in the industry. And finally, they start to create their own network. So when we attended a meeting with the people from Miniclip, they already know our faces, they know our names. They will remember the guys that made this game and somehow in the past interacted with, and this can open doors in the future. So it's important to interact with all these mentors and partners that GameDev Técnico allows you to do. Yeah, what else? We had a mentor also regarding team management. It was Ricardo Rondão. It helped me a lot from the start to work on the team management side, and this then fostered a lot of practices that helped us work for more or less 1 year in this project at a steady pace, always with a stable product. It was very cool, and Pedro will talk about more talk a little bit more about it in the future slide, I think. But let me just add one last thing. We integrated a lot of third-party assets because it's not very wise when we have a team of 3 programmers and 3 artists and myself as a producer to try to reinvent the wheel. If there is an asset that for $60, $80, €100 saves you 50 hours of programming, go ahead, do it. It has been widely tested. It has been widely used by the community. Choose wisely the assets. Choose one that has good support, has a good community. The developers behind them can reply to your questions pretty briefly, and spend the money on that. It's gonna take out a lot of headaches in the end. And also, I cannot go a lot into the details about it for obvious reasons, but we provided the service to CCB. So we sell a service to them, and we had to come up with a contract. It was a 3-party contract. It was with us, CCB, and the Ministry of Culture of Portugal. And the document itself, it was aligned with what a CCB was used to do in terms of contracts and agreements with their providers, but it didn't really match what we needed as game developers. And that did not benefit any of the parties in the end, because if the goals are not clear in the document, everybody can do sketchy things, avoid deadlines, avoid milestones, avoid some packages that need to be sent to other partners, and this does not benefit the project in the end at all. In particular, let me just mention the publishing issue. CCV was completely unaware of the practices that had to be gone through to deploy a game into the Play Store or the iOS store, or even the Huawei store that we ended up trying in the end. So these are the sort of things that should be written in the document. And if it was today, I would have paid a couple of €100 for a lawyer to review the document, just to make sure that everything is aligned with the expectations and all the legal and bureaucratic stuff that we need to be aware of. And now Pedro will talk a little bit more about the team management.
Okay, so I'm not taking much time, but as you can see from the last slides and this conversation, so this project, of course, comes with extra responsibilities when it comes to contracts and working with other entities. And because of that, we need to have some sort of management. And this is where this sort of project shines, because it gives this opportunity for us to actually organize ourselves and think about something in more of a long term, instead of just doing a game in 2 days, for example, for a jam. So instantly from the start, internally, for our coders and artists in our internal team, Diogo already came up with the idea of having 2 meetings per week, for example, and it was always the same days, always the same time, and usually during the morning. So this is very important for us, because these sort of meetings were actually similar to, for example, the daily scrums, as many people, as many of you probably have known from courses. So trying to actually get the idea of what is everybody doing and what is the plan for the next week, and trying to organize the tasks, it is very important. And of course, by doing these meetings and by organizing each week according to bigger plans, yeah, it's very interesting to do, and it's something that you can actually apply when you get out of college and go to work, because it is very relevant to have this sense of responsibility to actually understand what we are doing as a team, what we are doing as individuals, and what we have to do in the next days, for example. And for this, of course, the meetings and doing, for example, the small jams was very important for us as well, because as students, we can't, of course, work on this every day, but sometimes we will just plan a specific day to actually all of us focus on this and work together. And for example, during the daily meetings, not the daily, but during these 2 meetings per week, we also sometimes, when we see that we have some issue that we need to tackle together, for example, 2 specific programmers together, we would plan another meeting just to tackle this issue. And of course, all of this is very relevant for us to actually align the work according to the releases and the schedule, because of course we have this responsibility to deliver, for example, 3 parts of the game. So we have 3 levels, and we had, for example, for each 2 months to deliver something. And this is something that is very important in this sort of long-term project. And I don't know if Diogo, you want to add anything else, because you are actually the manager, not me. So
Yeah, but
go ahead.
I think you benefited a lot from it, because as you said, it's pretty hard. I'm a PhD student. I'm doing my doctoral program, so I kind of have my own schedule. But you, as master students and bachelors, you do not have it. So we try to fit all schedules in a week and try to come up with 1 or 2 hours to meet everybody. And it's not easy, even more because people are from different colleges, so it's very hard. But in the end, I think we did a great job. Weekly meetings, 2 weekly meetings in the morning, jams to boost the work when needed, and also something, I don't know if you still want to add anything to it, Pedro, but
actually, I wanted to also talk about just mention, for example, using tools such as Jira or even Trello, because it's simpler. So having these sort of tools for issue tracking and team management, it's very important for us to have a backlog, to have this Kanban board as well. So for all of us to keep track of everything visually. So yeah, that's just something that I also wanted to add.
Yeah. It's more or less that. Be organized, be tidy, and be regular, and everything is gonna go well by the end.
Yeah.
Oh, this is me again. I'm talking too much. Yeah. How much time, Daniela?
We are over 10 minutes from the end of the session, so
Okay.
yeah, negative
I'm gonna
time.
try to be really fast. So we released the game in iOS and Android stores. We had 3 main releases, one in February, by the end of February of 2021, another one by the end of April, and another one at the beginning of July on my birthday, on 4th of July. And it was aligned with the final day of the program. And we, of course, had middle deployments to solve some bugs, some issues, but in the end, this was more or less the schedule. 3 things to point out very fast. The development environment, the staging environment, and the production environment are 3 concepts that we should have while producing these games. The development environment is very relaxed. We use a lot of tools, and everything works in the browser or in the editor. When you start moving stuff to mobile phones, when you start writing out on our mobile phones, on iOS devices, Android, you start facing some problems, but the real problems appear when you start deploying the games to the stores. All the stores have a lot of testing and evaluating the packages that you send them to the installers. And most of the times you will be faced with problems on the deployments that we were not faced during the development or the staging phases. What else? We had to comply with a lot of policies from the Play stores that were not fun at all, like the image that Andres showed you before of the caterpillar smoking. It's not allowed on the stores because the game was meant to be PEGI 3. Otherwise, they're going to start buying cigarettes for some reason. We cannot mention any references to alcohol stuff, which was also very sad, because the story itself mentions it, and it's an important part of the story. And finally, market the game. The marketing part of the game, the dissemination of the project, was mostly done from the CCB part, as they have a wide network of contacts, and they were able to get us in timeout and spread the game and the word about the project alongside all the other exhibitions and installations. But in fact, if you can change the slide, Andre, please, we realized that this is more or less the installed devices across the year, starting by the end of February until today. Each one of those little bumps you see is the release of a new chapter, as I told you. But the biggest bump, which happens around September, it happened when we as GameDev Técnico started promoting the game. And this was something that surprised us, because in one way or another, we expected CCB to have a wider range of contacts that would help us reach a wider and larger audience. But maybe they are not that prone to games. I don't know. We can emphasize a lot of things, but we are not sure about what happened. But in the end, it's important to wrap up the project. In 1 year, the game will not run in any of the devices because of SDKs, of problems, of a lot of stuff. So it's important to come up with press releases, make yourself aware in the press, send press releases to magazines, to online websites, and spread the word. Try to have some articles, some interviews, as we did, a couple of them. And actually, Technic does a really good job on that regard. And also, in the final stretch of the project back in August, I think, we made the trailer that you saw earlier today. And it's very important because the trailer is a video. It's going to be there always. It's going to work always. And it's a very good summary of what we did in the game. And we can show it like today in the presentation when we want to talk about the game. And I think this is all the main points that I could share in the time that I have. I have more, so if anyone is particularly interested about the production challenges, releasing the game, and all of this stuff come out to the chats on talk in the chats in Discord. Yeah, and that's it. And the end. This is the end. I don't know what are we meant to talk on this. I did not prepare this slide, Andre.
Yeah, since we don't have much time, perhaps we just conclude a bit that it was a good experience for us to learn a bit of the professional paradigm of game development, because we basically act a bit like professionals, and that was pretty good. We took a lot of things from here. For example, the management side that Diogo talked about. I already was able to implement that on the Winter Jam that we talked about, the use of Git, the use of boards. Now we are implementing that on other internal projects as Winds of Berkana, and that really helped us not on the soft skills, on the hard skill sides, but on the soft skills. It's really important because we had a different vision of how a game should be developed on the long term, and how we should be organized, as Pedro talked a lot about.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. Just try to be professional on these projects. Nobody is going to hire a jack of all trades. Nobody is going to hire a person that does music, sound, programming, art. Try to focus on something that is close to your art and you can be good at, and try to get a job on that, because you need to pay the bills. You need to have your own life, and yeah, this was a good opportunity to start to grasp what being in the game industry really is. And the guy in the middle, Pedro Soares, is already working in Miniclip, so yeah.
Yay!
And this picture, Sophia and Ariana are missing, so props to them as well.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for paving the way for this kind of future projects in GDT. Thank you for gathering all this knowledge that we can use in the future. And well, let's move on to Carlos' speech. Are you ready?
Já estou pronto, vamos lá ver tela. Estou a ver PowerPoint?
Ainda não.
Isso,
agora já estamos.
Ok, isto estava um bocadinho cravado o zoom. Ok, eu tenho um pitch e já vou dizer o que é. Mas isto surgiu porque eu queria trabalhar em 3D, que é algo que não consigo fazer muitas vezes. Aliás, se olharmos para os jogos do GameDev que estão na página do itch.io, só uma porcentagem pequena é que é de facto em 3D. A maioria são 2D, portanto, isto é mais eu que mais 3D no portfólio, e provavelmente não sou o único. Realmente o único jogo que pude fazer level design em 3D, que é uma coisa que eu quero uma vez fazer, foi o meu jogo de DJ, foi o Isolation Thief, que era este immersive sim em primeira pessoa, onde o jogador tenta assaltar uma casa, então tem que gerir o peso que carrega e evitar detecção, com mecânicas de stealth, e pode estar sempre a repetir o nível com várias side quests, tipo Hitman, a nova trilogia, que é tipo, ok, tens sempre que matar esta pessoa, mas ganhas tipo experiência por fazeres de formas diferentes que eles dizem. Portanto, eu tive que fazer um plataforma 3D, porque já quando começa a fazer um jogo de uma forma, um engine novo ou uma dimensão diferente, um plataforma é perfeito para começar, e eu adoro o género, tipo, é divertido. Aliás, tenho os meus jogos favoritos à direita e um plataforma 3D tipo, aparece várias vezes, tenho 6 aí. E na minha opinião, não sei se os collectathons assim abertos são os melhores, em que em vez de teres chegar ao final do nível, tipo Mario 64, em que tem um objetivo, cumpres e voltas para o fim, fora do nível, simplesmente dão-te um nível muito aberto, grande, onde podes explorar e colecionar muitas coisas e estar lá até que tu quiseres, basicamente. E eu estava assim com um bocado de a perceber-me que a maioria dos artistas do GDT são em 2D em vez de 3D. Portanto, eu tive a ideia que se calhar para acabarmos com um personagem um bocadinho melhor e reduzir a carga de trabalho, ter uma personagem que era um billboard. Tem sido uma trend, assim um bocado que eu tenho visto em jogos indie. E isso levou-me a ter duas epifanias. Que a personagem ia ser feita de papel e que o jogo ia ser um bocado inspirado pelo Rayman 2, que é uma das melhores plataformas de sempre. Portanto, comecei a pensar em habilidades baseadas em papel, tipo deitar no chão para formar uma ponte, para deixar um objeto passar, fazer um strafe para dentro de uma racha, tipo Link Between Worlds, talvez já jogou esse jogo, ou mesmo chocar para se transformar numa bola de canhão. E também pensei na ideia que, tipo, à medida que passamos níveis, desbloqueamos, tipo, habilidades de origami, que o jogador pode transformar-se em qualquer uma delas, tipo uma weapon wheel. Tipo um touro para partir objetos, um sapo para fazer saltos grandes, um golfinho para submerger e um pássaro que é para ganhar altitude e fazer um glide mesmo longo. Então até comecei a pensar que o art style, o que faria mais sentido, era algo baseado em tipo papel ou outras coisas, trabalhos manuais, tipo tecidos e objetos tipo do dia a dia, mas tipo dados um outro propósito, que acho que era o que mais fazia sentido para este jogo. Quanto é que vamos tipo numa direção tipo ser só papel versus outras coisas, e geralmente eu deixo para os artistas. Pode ser que mesmo neste site tenho 4 exemplos, todos a mesma ideia, mas todos execuções completamente diferentes. Portanto, há muita margem de manobra mesmo com esta ideia. Eu até pensei na ideia de ter um hub world, que eu gosto de um hub world num jogo, a ideia também de um hub world como um nível, e ser tipo um parque temático, tipo um diorama, feito por alguém, com materiais tipo papel e cartão e essas coisas. E, portanto, o jogador exploraria este parque temático, haveria vários NPCs a passear e que ele podia falar, e as atrações seriam os níveis. Portanto, o jogador explorava, tentava encontrar onde é que era o próximo nível, e à medida que apanha o collectible primário, desbloqueia níveis, mas mesmo um collectible secundário que desbloqueia paths, seja para os níveis, seja para segredos, seja para, pode ter tipo collectibles primários também escondidos no Upworld. Isto é um bocado inspirado, tipo, não sei se já estiveram na Disneylandia, ou se conseguem ver o meu rato, mas aqui nesta parte do Adventureland, isto não tem atrações, isso é só mesmo tipo uma casa de árvore, cavernas e isso tudo, para a pessoa poder explorar e perder-se ali completamente. Foi uma das coisas que sempre gostei. Quanto a temas de níveis, não seria tipo restrito a coisas tipo parques temáticos, tipo acho que qualquer tema que escolhermos conseguimos enquadrar nisto, mas fiquei com ideias tipo fazer uma montanha mineira com carradas de carrinhos de minas a passar de um lado para o outro, e eventualmente podias entrar lá para dentro e ver a mina subterrânea, ou uma casa assombrada, acho que seria fazer algo inspirado na Transilvânia ou assim, seria engraçado. Quanto ao moveset básico da personagem, quanto a dizer, inspirei um bocado no Rayman 2, e já vou explicar porquê, mas temos aqui à esquerda um hover, que acho que é uma forma interessante de cobrir terreno, sabe sempre bem ter algo para estender o teu salto. E foi daqui que veio a mecânica, porque eu pensei, tipo, ter a personagem, ver a câmera atrás da personagem, tipo um strafing, aplicação billboard, ter aí da esquerda para a direita, e o Rayman tem esse combate em que estás virado numa direção e estás a demandar projéteis. Eu acho que é interessante que projéteis é uma forma interessante de interagir com este mundo. Geralmente estes jogos têm combate melee em vez de ranged, e também resolve um bocadinho de problemas de depth perception associados a ter um billboard. E também depois pensei, tipo, gosto muito de LEDs grabs, acho que é uma mecânica que ajuda ao flow do jogo e isso tudo. E o Rayman 2 sempre teve uma coisa perfeita, que é assim que agarras a LEDs, tipo frame 1, podes saltar. Eu acho que isso é perfeito para um billboard, porque fazer um LEDs climb mais elaborado com um billboard é capaz de ser complicado. Mas também, eventualmente, depois temos uma base mais sólida, acho que uma coisa interessante era expandir para além do platformer, porque uma das coisas que eu gosto mais do género é a variedade de gameplay. Se, por exemplo, olhem para o Crash Bandicoot 3, tem sempre níveis de veículos ou assim, para controlar, sejam motas, sejam jet skis. O Rayman 2 tem níveis de para voar. E o Super Mario Odyssey, tipo, o rei de variedade. Tipo, podes atirar o chapéu, possuir um inimigo e dá-te um control scheme completamente diferente. Tens carradas disto. Portanto, acho que isto é perfeito porque podemos experimentar várias mecânicas diferentes, que se calhar não encontramos uso para dar para um jogo inteiro, ou tínhamos a oportunidade de usar. E outra coisa é que, tipo, se fizermos um mini-jogo de corridas, por exemplo, tem que ser controles bons, não tem que ser controles tão bons como se o jogo fosse dedicado a corridas, porque não é o foco da gameplay, é tipo uma diversão à parte. E acho que isso dá-nos uma oportunidade de experimentar vários control schemes diferentes e ganhar experiência em áreas diferentes. Tipo, eu pessoalmente mecânicas que eu gostava de experimentar é, tipo, no Super Mario Galaxy tens esta bola e tens que balançar. Portanto, eu gosto dessas físicas de bolas, tipo Monkey Ball, estás a tentar rodar a esfera. Outra coisa interessante também seria fazer algo tipo muito mais small scale, tipo Spider-Man, em que disparas tipo um grapple e podes tipo dar swing de um lado para o outro. Mas pronto, seria muito mais small scale. Também falamos na Way para Escape 3, que tem tipo uma paródia completa do Metal Gear Solid, mas é tudo os macacos do jogo, e ter tipo uma secção de stealth assim, acho que era algo divertido. E também o exemplo do Sonic Adventure, tinha uma secção de snowboard. Também o Rayman 2 tinha secções parecidas em que estás a descer uma grande encosta e vais muito rápido e fazes truques, é divertido. Portanto, o gameplay loop seria, entras num nível grande, expansivo, quer dizer, não é gigante, mas denso com conteúdo, penso um bocado do Mario Odyssey, e tem de encontrar os collectibles primários, tipo as luas ou os gigas do Banjo-Kazooie, podem estar no nível, podem ser resultado do mini-jogo, podem ser uma pista do NPC, ou pode ser tipo uma platforming challenge mais à parte, que o jogador pode aceder por uma porta, um portal, e também há tipo collectibles secundários, que eles desbloqueiam patches no World, e que ajudam um bocado também, são um bocado tipo migalhas de pão reversas, como não respawn isso tudo, tipo o jogador pode usar um bocado para ver onde é que já esteve no nível isso tudo, e tentar apanhá-las todas. Portanto, há várias ideias possíveis para objetivos, a ideia é mesmo ter bastantes. Pode ser tipo, eu falei daquele nível da montanha, pode ser mesmo chegar ao topo da montanha e à medida que o jogador vai para lá, está a trepar, vê mais objetivos, apanha mais coisas e depois de chegar lá ao topo pode olhar em redor do nível e ter uma noção das coisas que há em redor. Pode ser disparar contra switches numa ordem certa, tipo um elemento mais puzzle, e ele depois tipo, vê essa ordem, explorar o ambiente, tipo ver pistas ou falar com NPCs. Pode ser as transformações de origami, ele pode transformar, por exemplo, num golfinho e furar uma caverna debaixo d'água, que geralmente eu não conseguia ir debaixo d'água, assim, a transformação. Ou pode ser descobrir um teleporter e leva uma challenge mais à parte, mas é tipo mais focada em pure platforming em vez de exploração e mastery dos controles. Portanto, acho que este jogo a ideia é tipo, ter vibes mesmo reconchegantes, tudo feito de esses materiais, tipo papel, lã, tecidos e essas coisas todas, mas também que tem um tom engraçado e que saiba fazer, dizer muitas piadas e fazer gozar com si próprio, porque acho que é uma das coisas que gosto destes jogos da Rare. Portanto, acho que a ideia, acho que a coisa boa deste projeto é que, como temos muito tipo de conteúdo diferente e muito conteúdo, toda a gente pode contribuir ideias e experimentar coisas novas. Portanto, acho que se juntarem a este projeto, toda a gente consegue deixar a marca deles e ficar satisfeito. Obviamente, tipo, o tamanho do jogo vai se ajustar à equipa. Temos que ver quem é que vai juntar isso tudo. E não dizer tipo, todas as ideias que nos ocorrerem. Temos que evitar feature creep. Portanto, à medida que vamos fazendo o jogo e acabando coisas, vamos ver o que é que vale a pena fazer a seguir, o que é que dá tempo, o que é que faz sentido em termos de arte e isso tudo, e que se enquadra no conteúdo que já temos. Portanto, não vamos fazer algo gigantesco se não conseguimos fazer isso. Agora, isto não é tanto parte do pitch, isto é só porque acho que é algo que gostava de dizer ao GDT, porque questões de programação, eu no fundo, tal como questões de arte das pessoas artistas, eu das questões de programação para programação. E há pessoas que vão acabar por programar mais do que eu. Mas visto que isto é um platformer, e visto que vamos poder experimentar várias coisas e isso tudo, e é um projeto mais longo, acho que isto é a nossa oportunidade para aprender Unreal, que eu considero que é algo bastante importante, e que acho que há aqui pessoas que não têm exatamente nos planos, e eu queria dizer umas coisas para se calhar reconsiderarem. Porque Unreal é o engine mais popular em termos de AAA. E há muitos estúdios agora a usarem Unreal. Aliás, tendo em conta as tecnologias novas que o 5 vai ter, tipo o Nanite e o Lumen, ainda vai ser mais popular do que foi antes, muito provavelmente. E acho que é bastante importante aprendermos, porque o Unity é muito importante, prepara-nos bastante, mas não nos prepara tanto como o Unreal. E há uma coisa que as pessoas não se apercebem, tipo, conseguir aprender um engine também é uma skill em si próprio. Porque há muitos estúdios que usam custom engines em C++, que é algo que acho que muitos de nós não estamos habituados a trabalhar num contexto de jogos. E há muitos engines lá que são mais difíceis de que Unreal, mais complexos, e vão ser definitivamente mais difíceis de aprender, porque não vão ter os recursos online, e as pessoas que podem ensinar são pessoas que já estão a trabalhar no jogo, se calhar não podem dedicar tanto tempo, e vai ser esperado que aprendas enquanto estão a desenvolver um jogo. Portanto, tens que adaptar-te rapidamente às ferramentas do estúdio, que é para não poderes ficar para trás. Portanto, este ambiente em que estamos a trabalhar, sem realmente prazos muito set, e podemos colaborar uns com os outros e tirar dúvidas e fazer erros, é o ambiente perfeito para fazer isto. Mas pronto, como eu estou a dizer, isto é uma questão que vamos discutir entre equipa, e também depende um bocado de quem é que se vai juntar à equipa, e não diria que isto está decidido. Há razões válidas ainda para usar Unity. Mas pronto, eu gostava muito que juntasse este projeto. Acho que é um jogo para toda a gente imaginar. E se alguém tiver questões, disparem.
Ok, eu tenho umas quantas. Primeiro gostava de dizer que é fixe de ver que nós estamos cada vez mais a apostar em projetos internos. Isto é bacana, porque permite muito mais aprendizagem. E acho que os argumentos que tu disseste são bastante válidos. Eu ainda estava um bocadinho preocupado com a scope quando estavas a apresentar as cenas, mas depois acho que fizeste essa cena bem clara de que vais ajustar a equipa e isso é fixe. E eu acho que curto da ideia de boa individual do jogo ser uma cena mais paper-like e mais orientada para esse coziness, e acho que isso é muito bacana. Acho que tem uma individualidade certa. Eu diria, se calhar, não meteste aí nas ideias, mas um jogo também é muito conhecido por essa vertente de billboard, é o Among Us. Among Us não, desculpa. Agora esqueci-me do nome. Aquele de sobrevivência com uma arte mais gótica. Qual?
Don't Starve?
Don't Starve, exatamente, yeah. Também utiliza billboard muito bem.
Billboards, porque billboards é tipo, rodam para virar para a câmara. Acho que isso é muito bom objeto 2D.
Mas seria fixe. A minha pergunta mais é virada para a narrativa. Eu acho que tens aqui uma ideia muito bacana, mas já pensaste tipo, na narrativa do jogo? Como é que se vai adaptar aos níveis e tudo? Ou ainda está muito aberto para
Ainda está
depois
muito
dizer?
aberto. Honestamente, histórias, portanto, um platformer, acho que. Não estou a dizer que não é importante. Tipo, eu gosto bastante de plataformas. Tipo, eu falei do. Tem o Sly 3 e o Jack 2 tem um grande foco em história e eu gosto bastante dessas histórias. Mas acho que isto é uma história que cada vez é um bocadinho mais simples. Portanto, agora não pensei muito nos detalhes. Eu até, tipo, na descrição do que eu vou pôr no Looking for Group, eu falei que, tipo, na verdade, o parque temático ia ter sido criado por alguém, tipo uma mulher ou assim. Portanto, se calhar podia ser uma história imaginada por uma criança que brinca com isso. Tipo, o filme do Lego faz-me lembrar que, não sei se viram, mas pronto, aquilo passa-se tudo na cave do Will Ferrell e descobre-se que o Will Ferrell criou aquilo tudo. E a história do jogo é um bocado ele a libertar-se, tipo, ok, não é preciso estar tudo rígido, é suposto brincar com isto, não ser só um modelo para ficar bonito. Mas já, acho que em termos de detalhe do protagonista e isso tudo, está tudo muito em aberto.
Ou seja, ainda não sabemos se o protagonista vai ser um dragão roxo ou um ouriço azul.
Por acaso faz lembrar a um dragão roxo que é tipo uma personagem, que é tipo a mascote da imaginação da Disney, que também tem nos parques temáticos deles, que é o Figment. Mas pronto. Mais alguém tem questões?
Eu acho que nós não temos muito tempo para questões.
Ok. Então eu vou postar um texto no Looking for Group e depois podem reagir para mostrar interesse em participar.
Para explicar só mais um bocadinho também disso, nós agora acabámos de utilizar o Looking for Group para a GGJ e provavelmente também vamos postar agora uma cena para as Gaming Jams atuais, mas se calhar postamos isso e depois, Carlos, tu postas o teu call para um projeto interno. E para os noobs que estão aqui que também nunca fizeram isto, os projetos internos funcionam da mesma forma como as Jams. Vocês vão ao post, dão um react e dizem que estão interessados em trabalhar no projeto.
Só para estressar, newbies, vocês podem se juntar, não se estressem, tipo, não terem feito um jogo nunca. Nós estamos aqui para aprender e para ensinar, portanto, se gostam da ideia, não fiquem assustados, especialmente se eu falei em Real, que é mais complicado, porque outra vez isso não está decidido, vamos ter que discutir isso bem, portanto podemos acabar por usar um engine mais simples e ter um jogo igualmente bom, portanto, se gostam do conceito, juntem-se, é tão simples quanto isso, não tenho medo.
É uma boa oportunidade para aprender, exatamente.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Just a reminder that if you have any ideas like this, or if you want to make a pitch about your own game or your own idea, you can always reach out to us, coordinators, and we will set it up. So to conclude our session, we will have the presentation about the GDT recruitment of this year. I think it was Manel. Are you there?
Yes, I am. So I'll be the fastest presentation you've ever seen, okay? Because we are running out of time. So I'll be, first of all, I'm the head community manager. I'm Manuel Guimarães. I'm from GameDev Técnico. And for those of you that were watching this and have not joined or are interested in joining, this presentation is good for you. But this presentation initially was only internal, so there might be a few things here that are not for you, but I'll explain it later. So first of all, what is GameDev Técnico today? And so right now we have 39 members, along with 5 mentors and other people from our partnerships and alumni. Last year we had 28 members, so we grew a little bit, and as usual, we participated in many different game jams, and we are also engaged in 6 different long-term projects, and maybe with Carlos' speech, this will go on to be 7, and then as the months go by, this number will grow, and a few projects will also end. So we started from the bottom, now we are here. What here means is that we now have like 40 different members. We are nuclear students, and our recruitment is starting soon. Actually, it has already started. And just to give you guys an idea, last year we had 34 candidates. Of those, 25 of them became either members or collaborators, because you might not be a student, but might also want to join or unofficially join GameDev Técnico. And this year, the recruitment is starting once again. And so we are, we do the same thing that we do every year, where we release a form on our social media asking people if they are interested in joining. And the fact is, already 40 different people have answered this form, and of those, 21 of them have joined our Discord, and 16 of them have become quite active. And what this means is that even though we didn't start the recruitment already, we already have like plenty of people interested in joining. And now that the form is open, we will see how many people we get. But as usual, we want to grow in a sustainable way, which means that we can't accept just everyone. Like, let's say if 100 people are candidates to join GameDev Técnico, we are unable, because it's not sustainable, to accept them all. So we'll use a process called desk reject system, where we evaluate each candidate through their recruitment form and what they put there and their motivation, and something called a proof of work, which is essentially if you have work in the area, we want to take a look at it, and we'll judge each candidate according to that. And then if you're accepted, then you will start your recruitment process. This recruitment process is composed of 4 different phases. The first one is a marketing phase, where the objective is just to reach out to as many possible candidates of GameDev Técnico as possible. The second one is a profile evaluation and interview of the candidates, which essentially evaluates each candidature, and then we interview those possible candidates. And once you've been accepted into our recruitment process, then we begin a process we call the quests, where you have to complete 3 different quests. That essentially is a way for us to test you in your teamwork, in your commitment to the group, in your motivation, etc. And then finally, we have a trial period where we essentially are probing your long-term commitment to the group, if you keep working throughout that time. And so essentially, this process usually lasts 6 months, and the first phase, we are currently here in the end of phase 1, and this is the distribution of the rest of the phases. So the interview phase, and then the quests, which should last about a month and a week, and then the rest of the final quest stage. The final quest essentially is the trial period. Okay. And so finally, what is relevant here is that if you want to join us, our recruitment form is now open, so you can go there and you can complete it, and that will gather you a candidature or an application for the recruitment of GameDev Técnico. So for you to join the group, officially join the group, you can go to our, you can follow this QR code, or you can go to our social media or website and fill the form there. Like we said before, we are going to essentially evaluate your proof of work, which means work that you've done in the field of game dev or in other fields that might be relevant for you to join us. So if you still have time, so the form will only close in 4th of February. So if you want to produce some work until then, you can, and then you can add it to the link. You can link it into the recruitment form. Now, if you're a member of GameDev Técnico and you're watching this presentation, we will need your help, because we are still, we don't really know how many candidates we'll have, but we know a few things for sure: that we'll need people to interview the candidates, that we'll need people to review and look at the presentations from each candidate, and that we will also need essentially your help to evaluate with the rest of the quests, and to welcome both the newbies and to support their questions. Okay, so a call will be made soon on Discord for you to just let us know if you want to help in this big process, okay, in this recruitment process. So let's give our best. The recruitment form is now open, so it was opened yesterday, and so you have 2 weeks essentially to fill that form and apply to recruitment of GameDev Técnico. And you can share with your friends, family, colleagues, acquaintances, teachers, whatever you like, if you think they're students and they're interested in joining the GameDev Técnico team. And the links are available throughout our website, social media, and Linktree. And that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope I was fast enough. And that's it. If you want to join us, join us. If you want to help us, help us. All right. Thank you.
There is a question on the chat. Do the newbies that are currently in the server need to fill in the form again?
Yes. Yes. Don't worry, we'll let you know. We'll put the announcement on the newbie announcement, but every newbie that is interested in officially joining GameDev Técnico, now that you've seen what we do, you'll require to fill the form. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I think that's all. We can finally conclude our session. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here, our members for being with us in Zoom, and the rest of the people for being with us in Twitch. Special thank you to everyone that presented today, and another special thank you to our newly acquired mods on Twitch. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you again next month.
All right.
Good job, guys. See ya.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Daniel and George.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.